If true, this changes everything for the New York Islanders' offseason plans, as Noah Dobson's recent contract ask is a lot higher than fans anticipated, and as a result, the Islanders are going to need to clear cap space if they are going to keep him on the team. And as a result, the Islanders may have to trade a player they weren't quite looking to trade just yet. We're going to break it all down on this episode of Islanders Digest. But really quickly, before we do that, we notice that 65% of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. And that's crazy because we are in the middle of a huge offseason for the New York Islanders. So if you want more Islanders updates just like this, as more trades and all these rumors come out in the following 2 weeks, be sure to subscribe so you stay up to date with all that and join this Islanders community on YouTube. Now let's really get into this Noah Dobson situation and how it can impact the Islanders in terms of trades. Now, we've talked in recent videos about the Islanders trading Noah Dobson, but one thing we do have to kind of address is that Mathew Barzal has named Noah Dobson as a part of this core. And as a result, while it makes a ton of sense to shout Noah Dobson, I do think it is a little unlikely for him to move on. I think what's more likely is eventually the Islanders and Noah Dobson will come to an agreement. And that agreement will likely be a bit more than what the Islanders initially intended on paying Noah Dobson. And it might just be $1 million or so more, as in the initial offer was going to be around $8 million. And now the Islanders are going to have to pay him 9.5. I think that's actually the most likely scenario. A little too high, but I think that's better than trading Noah Dobson, which is a player who's very difficult to move on for. Again, if you can get a really good price, I think you do have to do it, especially with the price being that high. The most likely outcome of this is the Islanders signing Noah Dobson for $9.5 million. And why that's an issue is the Islanders have several other RFAs this offseason. And while they do have $21 million, it is not going to be enough. And as a result, JG Pageau has been pushed way up in terms of Frank Cervelli's trade bait board. The top numbers on this list are players that he thinks are most likely to be moved. So the fact that Jean-Gabriel Pageau is at number 8 on this list shows there's a lot of teams talking about Pageau, and it's very likely the Islanders do move him. And considering their cap space situation, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Islanders have $21 million of cap space, but you got to figure, say Noah Dobson, say it's an even number, say Noah Dobson makes $9 million of that cap space, and then Romanov, who fans are so intent on keeping, and really the Islanders are likely going to keep, especially considering he's 25 and what he brings to the game, really an element that no one else on the Islanders has. The two of them, likely with Romanov making $6 million, the two of them combined are going to make $15 million. And then when you factor in other restricted free agents for the Islanders, likely, I don't know if they do sign Scott Perunovich, but if they don't, they're going to have to bring someone else in. That's another $1 million. Then you have on forward, you have Holmstrom and Siplikov. Say for the sake of this argument, they're making $3 million. Although in reality, especially after the season that Holmstrom had, they're both going to likely command more than $3 million, perhaps 3.5 for Siplikov, 4 at best for Holmstrom. And you see the problem here already. You add up all those numbers, and that's at least $23 million without even signing Gatcomb, who also needs another contract. And assuming you're letting go of Hudson Fasching, which we're not sure, even if the Islanders do that, you're probably going to bring somebody else in to fill out that roster. So as a result, the Islanders are definitely going to need more than $21 million. And it seems like Jean-Gabriel Pageau is the most likely cap casualty. Now, the good thing about this is, even though, considering the Noah Dobson contract, the Islanders are losing a bit of leverage when it comes to Pageau, and the best time to move Pageau to get maximum return would be the trade deadline rather than now, because you'd have more teams interested in really overpaying to bring their roster to the next step. Pageau is the perfect example of a player who gets overpaid for on a trade deadline. But because the NHL center market is so horrendous this offseason, the Islanders are likely still going to be able to get a solid return for Pageau. It's really incredible how bad the center market is in the NHL, and it's gotten significantly worse with players like Matthew Shane deciding to stay in Dallas. Apparently, Granlund is also close to signing a contract extension in Dallas, and if that happens, this center market is going to be even worse, especially when you consider players like John Tavares are likely to stay in Toronto. If you're a team and you want a center, especially a gritty center like Pageau that does everything, wins faceoffs, there really aren't that many options. Pius Suter is one that comes to mind. But really, he does not bring the same quality of game, I think, that Pageau does. I think he's really riding off a career-high year in Vancouver. And even beyond that, Pius Suter is a player who's going to want a long-term contract situation. And that might not work for a team, which makes Jean-Gabriel Pageau an even more intriguing option for other teams. Still, it would have been nice for the Islanders to be able to hold on to him in the season and then trade him at the trade deadline for a maximum return. However, as Frank Saravelli writes up, just because teams are so desperate for centers, even if it's clear that the Islanders do need cap space, the Islanders are likely going to get a solid return for Pageau. Looking at the center market and what's gone already. Also, keep in mind, like, Nelson already signed. Duchesne, Donato, Gord, Taze is also already locked up. I would expect the Islanders to be able to land at least a second-round pick for Pageau, if not more. And when I'm talking about a second-round pick, I'm talking about a high second-round pick, because especially when we get this close to the draft, there's a big difference between a second-round pick that is from the 30 to 40 range, which is basically what the Islanders already have with their 42 overall pick, and a second-round pick that is 60 range. There's a big difference because 20 players who are going to be available with that first second-round pick are not going to be available for that later second-round pick. I do believe for Pageau, the Islanders are going to be able to command an earlier second-round pick or a return equivalent to that, if not more, depending on if the Islanders can pull off a bidding war. Again, this is going to be a little more challenged because the Islanders no longer have the leverage of having time on their side, just because they're going to want to get things done with Dobson and Romanov and all their RFAs. Of course, you could still hold on to him for a little bit. You don't have to trade him right away. But considering this is a situation where the Islanders are stuck in, I do expect that this is going to happen in the draft instead of the trade deadline, which is initially what I did prefer. But if that's the cost to keep these RFAs for the New York Islanders, then I think you do have to do it. Now, in addition to Gabriel Pageau, there are other players who are on this trade list that are of note for the New York Islanders. We talked about in recent videos with JG Pageau. He's actually number 1 on this list. So if the Islanders do decide to move Noah Dobson, that will definitely be something to watch. But one player I think we also have to keep in mind when it comes to this list is the rights of Isaac Howard. We haven't really talked about Isaac Howard recently on this channel because things have gone completely quiet with him and the Lightning. There's a lot of talk they're going to trade him. It makes sense for them to trade him at this draft because next season he's going to lose a lot of value, as in August he can sign for another team as a free agent. While he would be coughing up a good bit of money on his early NHL contract, he does really value that ability to pick a different NHL team for himself, rather than having the Lightning decide his future, especially considering they don't really have space for him along the wings. They are a very stacked team, the Lightning. So I thought this would be worth noting because especially when it comes to what the Islanders are looking to get in return for Pageau, that's actually kind of in line with what I expect Isaac Howard to go for. A high second-round pick plus maybe a B-level prospect. And I really wonder if this is a situation where the Islanders can probably acquire assets from Pageau. Then instead of using them to draft this year, they bring in a prospect like Isaac Howard. I know Isaac Howard is one of the better prospects in the NHL, but you have to keep in mind in this situation, the Lightning have absolutely no leverage, and if he ends up signing with the team next season, they get a compensatory pick next season that's going to be a late second-round pick. So for the Lightning, getting a higher second-round pick and perhaps one of the Islanders' lower-level prospects would be a win, and this is definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on. We're likely not going to hear anything about Isaac Howard, and then out of nowhere, he's going to get dealt, hopefully, to the Islanders. That is something to keep in mind. Then another player that was on this list of Frank Saravelli, of course, is Noah Dobson. And in this video, we're kind of more focusing on the prospect that the Islanders are going to keep Noah Dobson, because I do think that is the most likely outcome, especially depending on how low the Islanders can talk this $11 million number down. I know $11 million is a lot too much for Noah Dobson. We talked about it, got a ton of comments in the previous video talking about it, and I agree. I think that is too much to spend on a defenseman like him. But the question is, what number is Darsh going to be comfortable with? And depending on what that number is, I think if that number is around 9, as I said again in this video, I think this works out and the Islanders do hold on to Noah Dobson, which is why they have to move on from a player like Pageau. But it's worth noting that he is on this trade list. And if Matthew Darsh is not comfortable going over, say, $8 million, and he can't talk Noah Dobson down from, say, 10, then I think it's very likely we do see him traded. We're going to know a lot more on this in the coming days. Really excited to see what comes of this. A little nervous, although I will say, when it comes to new general managers, I really do trust Matthew Darsh to make the right decision. And one thing I do like about Darsh is he's known in the Lightning to be a person who is not willing to overpay for players. So because of that, you have faith that if Noah Dobson is asking too much money for his next contract, Darsh is going to do the right thing. I mean, I know he wasn't the general manager of the Lightning, but look at what they did with Stamkos when his ask was too high, and he was a legend in Tampa Bay compared to Noah Dobson, who, while been very good for the Islanders, has not hit legend status by any category. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. What do you think the Islanders can get from Jean-Gabriel Pageau if they do trade him at the not at the deadline, at the draft? And do you think that is the right decision, or do you think they should find a way to hold on to him till the deadline, where realistically he could probably command a first-round pick, especially considering I know this was a huge seller's market last season, but considering how thin the market is for centers now, it's only going to get worse as the season goes on and players get injured, stuff like that. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. As you know, I love to have hockey conversations with you guys in the comments. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you in the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders!